check this out, because I think this is the difference in age when you started riding versus when I started riding. Because for me, the bike and the helmet, anytime I was out somewhere, women in their 30s look at that and go, "Oh, he's irresponsible."
Jeremy Barker, I'm super excited to have you on my podcast today. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Hey, thanks, Eric. It's good to be on with you. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, no worries. I found you through social media. I found you through Instagram. I'm not a big IG person. Maybe it's my age, maybe I'm old, but I didn't start doing Instagram until I was on the until I had the podcast.
Right.
Today, it seems like you can't do any kind of business without Instagram.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that's become oddly ubiquitous. I always wondered for a long time, what was the point? Because you have all these different platforms, and I always thought ultimately they did the same thing. But after I spent some time looking into it, it's like, well, I guess they do have their purposes. And I don't have a Twitter because Twitter's a cesspool, and
Yes.
why? But Instagram I like, Facebook I deal with because you kind of got to, and yeah, I kind of got into that a little bit more in the last year or so, kind of like yourself, and
Right.
started trying to put some decent quality content out there. And yeah, it's great that somebody noticed. You never know really what's resonating and what isn't, or is any of this worth doing? And then you reached out, and I was like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. Somebody actually saw what I'm doing and noticed.
Yeah, no, for sure. And one of the things I find interesting is let me give you some background. I've always been in love with architecture.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know anything. I couldn't tell you the difference between a buttress and a spire, okay? They all look the same to me. But the point is I've always enjoyed, or I've always fantasized of the idea of me being an architect, okay? Now, that dream was quickly crushed after high school. I enjoyed drafting. We talked about this offline. I
Right.
enjoyed drafting. It was really, really fun. But what killed it for me was that you needed math, English, and you could draw.
Right.
And unfortunately, out of those three things, I sucked at pretty much all three. I'm not, I don't fit that Asian stereotype. My math was terrible. In fact, I looked at my report cards in grade 1 and 2, and they were all failing marks. I was failing grade 1 math in Hong Kong. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
I was not good in math. Um, and then when I found out that not only did you do racing, but you're also an architect. And I think at the time you were just trying to get your architecture license. I think that was what I had read.
Right.
You are now an architect.
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
COVID screwed that up for me, um, like it has for everyone. So I was burning through those exams, and there were 6 exams, and I got through 4.
Mm,
No problem. I've been working as an architect for a long time, so getting the registration wasn't a big deal,
sure.
and it's not the license isn't something that I'm going to readily use in my job because I work for a firm, MSA Design, and we only have a handful of people who actually stamp or sign drawings. And so my role doesn't really change that much, but it's one of those accomplishments that, if you go to architecture school and you graduate, you get your degree and you go work in the field, ultimately you want to close the loop and finally complete the arc, I guess, if you want to put it that way. And so I was like, it's time to focus on that a little bit, get it knocked out, and then keep going and see what else is out there for me. So that's the process I was in probably when you noticed, and then everything shut down. And it's frustrating because you have this momentum as you're burning through these exams and staying on that rail, and then I've had to reschedule my exams 4 times now. The testing centers had no idea what they were doing, and so the last 2 exams are in now They were in August and September. I had to push them back that far to get space, but the time is approaching. Yes. So
Okay,
yes,
well,
there's that world and the racing that are kind of strangely coexisting in my life right now.
right. Now, that's very interesting because on your Instagram, I also noticed that you're a bit of a tinkerer, right? You like to come over, like, I don't know. I saw that you're trying different mounts on your helmets with the GoPro, and I
Yeah.
thought, "Ah, that's kind of interesting because I am not a big tinkerer. Like, I mean, I'll do my odd thing here and there. We talked about setting up the lighting for the podcast and how I
Right.
do it,
Right.
right? So I'll do that, but I'll pay somebody to come with the solution. Now, are you
Right.
more of a hacker or are you more of a let's just buy it once and buy the right equipment?
I started out as a bad hacker, and then through that experience, I got better at going, okay, let's get the right stuff, and then figure out how to do things even better than sometimes the manufacturer does. So, like for example, um, when it comes to motorcycles, if you get inside the engine, forget it. I have nothing for you. I don't touch anything inside the block.
Right.
And I mean, I did my first clutch job last year, and it took me nearly a whole weekend. Now it came out flawless, but the job got done. And so as a club racer, you have to have some level of self-sufficiency, or you're going to go broke. So
Right.
I've tried to find that balance point. But what I like to do, and my Instagram reflects this, is that everything on the everything that doesn't matter is the stuff I'm really good at and I love to play with. So fiberglass, paint, vinyl, um, different ways to mess with hardware, to attach things, to secure things, safety wire, camera mounts, all this stuff. If it bolts to the thing somehow, I'm all into it. But if it makes the bike actually go faster, I'm like, I don't know. You do it. I don't know what's going on. So
Nice.
it's weird, and I get made fun of relentlessly for it, and I've just I've learned to just take it. But I build a reputation on it, so that's the weird little corner I've carved out for myself in the sport.
That that's hilarious. I mean, I'm what I do like to do is I actually enjoy the process of building homemade furniture. Now, that
Yeah.
isn't to say I've done a lot. I've only done one thing actually, now that I think about it. The legitimately, I've built my own like 7 foot long dining table out of plywood,
Nice.
and it looked really good. I'm not bragging. It's just like I'm surprised that it turned out. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was cool. The missus actually started by making a coffee table. And when she made it that look good, my competitive juices flowed. And I said, there's no way she's gonna one up me by
For
being,
sure.
the person who wears the pants in the family and makes this amazing looking, rustic table. And I'm like, damn it, I gotta do something
You got
just
to
as
get in
cool.
the game, man.
I just gotta get in
Yeah.
the game. So
I I've toyed with that myself. I built a bed frame when I was in college, and what I did was I dovetailed all the four corners of the bed frame so that there was no hardware. The only
mm,
thing that held it together was aircraft cable and a turnbuckle. So that tension pulled all four corners in, and then that was counterbalanced by the gravity load of the mattress and the person in the bed.
mm,
And somehow I made that work. Um,
wow.
it needed a little, it needed a little refinement because it wasn't the prettiest thing you'd ever seen, but the theory was solid, and that was enough for me. And it cost me like $40, and I was in college, so that's the end all be all right there.
That's pretty cool. So where did the love of architecture come in play? Let's not worry about your racing career right now. Let's talk about architecture because that's what
Sure,
I want to hear about.
sure.
How did that even start? Is it something you've always wanted to do?
Pretty close. Uh, I would say, well, there's one pivotal moment.
Mm,
I think there, like a lot of kids my age who grew up in the early '80s. I had Lincoln Logs and Legos and erector sets and stuff like that. And I would build little cities out of crayons. I'd use crayons for the curbs, and then little micro machines, little city pieces, and do like the fire station, the police station, and the hospital and everything. And then I would lay out grids with crayons and just play with my little micro machines or my Matchbox cars like that on just in my room when the walls were the edges of the world at that point. And that's kind of how it got started. And then there was a point when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, give or take, and I grew up in a 900 square foot, really tiny, 2 bedroom house, and my parents had been working and working, and they were thinking about trying to get into a bigger place because my little brother had just been born, and it was getting pretty cramped in there, and they were hoping to maybe get a piece of property and build. And so they started ordering these home plan books.
Hmm.
And this was back way before computers. So the home plan books, each house was just a pencil rendering and a floor plan. And I stumbled on these one day as a kid and I started flipping through them. And what was fascinating to me about it was trying to match the rendering with the floor plan and try to understand, well, okay, this corner must be this corner. And oh, so there it goes back and there it comes back out. And so each one was a mental puzzle. And I would sit in for hours, just flip through these things. And that's where I really learned to attach to a floor plan. Now,
Hmm.
later on, I end up learning that's probably the least important architectural drawing that, that exists, but it's the
Right.
one that most people relate to. And I was a little kid, so and
Right.
that's what started, I think, the first domino. And then I started to get good at drawing, good-ish, and then I took a technical drawing class, and then I went to college and had every expectation I had blown completely out of the water, and I realized I was woefully unprepared for what I thought I was good at,
Right.
and kind of started over. And then I think about halfway through college, I had another reset moment where I started to question if this was for me. And is this really what I want to do? Maybe do I want to do urban planning or something else, maybe tangential? And and then I finally said, well, do some research, do some homework, find out what really moves you about this. And if you can't find anything, then get out. And kind of reattached myself to more, avant-garde architecture and some
Hmm.
of the more interesting things that were happening, and started to really bury myself into concepts and theories. And I got a lot better and was a lot more focused, and then finished school, and then ended up where I'm at now. So then now I'm with MSA Design, and I've been there for 15 years, and it's been a wild ride. It's a really great group of people, and it's been a great work experience. So that's kind of the evolution of how that happened.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. MSA, the company you're working for now, what, how did they start? Like what kind of buildings do you guys build or plan for? What does the work like?
So yeah, MSA Design was initially started by Mike Schuster, and back in '85 he started as a one-man operation, and he he was starting with I think the first project he ever did was a handicapped accessibility ramp. It was a wheelchair ramp, and from there just got more odds and ends, more jobs, and eventually built the company to now we're 3 offices and almost 50 people. And what we do, we're known a lot for our sport work, and that initially started with some smaller colleges doing stadiums and athletic facilities and master planning and things like that. And then we got attached to the Cincinnati Reds. And obviously, anytime you get to a professional team, that's big. And the Reds have been great for us. And then that eventually led to the Houston Astros, and we completely redid their center field.
Wow.
And that was a great project. And then we started working with the Miami Marlins, and we redid their center field and did the Ocean Club out there. So it's really it's been fun. I mean, I played baseball as a kid, so to get to work on stuff like this has really been a dream come true. And so yeah, we do a lot of sport. We do a fair amount of restaurants and lifestyle work. We do a lot of civic work. I
Hmm.
spent 5 years working on a huge park out in Blue Ash on the edge of Cincinnati, and that's been a fun job. We've stayed away from some of the more like retail oriented stuff, and that may be our saving grace considering the climate of things right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to stay on the institutional side of things. So whether it's teams or colleges or cities, municipalities, that's kind of where our bread is buttered.
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be baseball this year? And I'll ask you why. Uh, I had this argument with my colleagues at work, and they're, oh yeah, sports going to be back. And I'm not a big sports guy. I'll be very honest with you. I just don't feel that I have the time to invest in watching people play games. Right? Not that I used to follow baseball religiously. Okay. Now I've never been a stats guy. Same thing with racing. You know, I'll have somebody famous on the podcast like Eric Bostrom, and I
Sure.
couldn't tell you when he won or when he lost. I just know he's an amazing racer. That's all I remember. Okay.
Right,
So
right.
same thing with baseball, right? Although I used to like read every single article there was about baseball, I never ever got into stats or memorizing people's achievements. Long story short is that the Blue Jays just announced there's a bunch of players that had the corona
Yep.
tested positive like today. So I, not that I'm a big worry about the virus. I mean, I get it. I don't want to be the guy who gives it to somebody who dies. I don't want to be that guy. And
Yeah,
so
no.
I'm overly cautious still to this day, even though it's been 4 months. My point is, I don't think there's going to be professional sports based on that because they just look at how little people play on the Jays. Maybe with all the back end office, maybe 100 people,
Yeah.
and that small pool, you've got guys who've been infected,
Yep.
right? If you follow the UFC, you know, in the 5 events they've had, 3 of those
Right.
5 events, people have been test positive. And again, how many people are in the arena? Less than 100. So I don't know. Do you think baseball's coming back or
Well,
sports?
it's funny you asked about that because we've been doing some work actually assessing that. And it looks like Major League Baseball has just come to an agreement. So they're going to play a 60-game season starting, I think, around July 23rd or 24th. So it's going to happen. Now the question is, I don't know how fans react is going to be the big thing. And so we took a look at what would the stadium look like if you actually respected social distancing protocols. And financially, it doesn't work because you can
Mm,
only, best case scenario, maybe operate at 22 to 26% capacity. And you're not going to open the doors for that. It just doesn't make any financial sense. So what we could do is, seat people in clusters and maybe run around 40 to 42% capacity. And maybe that makes sense. I don't know. But will there be sports? Yeah. The question is, what does it look like? I don't know the answer to that yet, and I don't think the teams do either. I think they're running around wondering how are we gonna make this work? And I think ultimately it's going to come down to the fan confidence or whether or not they even care. Some people may miss baseball enough to where they'll just go, and it is what it is. But I think there's some things you can do. You can monitor the restrooms, people coming in and out, and see, try to keep people from backing up. Concessions is a big issue. How are
mm,
people going to line up at the concession stand and then back up into the concourse? People bumping into each other. That's not good. Just can't have that. So maybe it'll force teams to get more into like an app-based ordering system or something where you can start to solve some of those issues going forward,
right.
and also make yourself more efficient, in the long run
Yeah.
down the line.
Yeah, maybe they'll actually finally start using Apple beacons, right? Because that was the whole point of Apple beacons maybe 8 years ago,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Was for that. I don't know, dude. I think you're running into a very slippery slope once you start allowing masses to come in, but then at the same time you have to deal with compliance. Like, are you now going to hire somebody to stand at the washroom stall and say, "Hey, Jeremy, you didn't wash your hands for 30 seconds. I counted
Yeah.
24 seconds on my clock.
Right.
No, man. Go back to the front line. You got to line up, right? Are you gonna tell guys to stay back, keep the 6 feet distance when the game's already started?
Right.
Seventh inning's already started. It's a tight game. They're not gonna wait. They're gonna. I need my hot dog or I need my beer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I
It's
just find it to be a slippery slope.
Yeah, and I think I mean, we even looked at, well, maybe you let people in on a timed basis. You know, if you have this ticket, you come in this gate at this time, and we'll let you in 10-minute intervals and small chunks, and you exit the same way. I really think, Eric, I think it's going to come down to whether or not fans are even bothered by this. Because if they don't care, they don't care.
Right.
And if they do, they're probably not going to go to the game anyway. And I think it'll be interesting to see, especially this first couple of weeks, what actually transpires. Who's going to be in the ballpark? You know, how many people are going to show up, and how do they handle things? You know, I think right now it's anybody's guess.
Yeah, I just had the worst idea ever. If you've got the blue ticket, you're watching innings 1, 3, 5, and 7. And if you've got the gray tickets, now
You
I
stand
think
outside and we'll rotate you in.
there you go. I think one of the things that can mitigate some of the issues is just mass testing, right? If we can get to a point where at the point of entry, we can do a quick swab, saliva, urine, whatever test to see if A, you've got it, if B, you have antibodies, then we can sit you appropriately, right?
Sure.
If you've never been tested for, if you don't have coronavirus, you can sit with the guys who've had coronavirus but has enough antibodies that you know they're not going to transmit. Let's go. All y'all can sit in, in the gold seats, right?
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
you got your silvers and your bronzes. But that comes with mass testing, and I personally have no idea how quick these tests and how viable is it to test that. I've pitched this idea, by the way, to Moto America. I said, you want your fans to come, just test them. Just test
Sure.
them all. Right. Some of these tracks are big enough that you can definitely socially distance, no
Oh,
problem. You got
easily.
15 corners, you got 15,
Sure.
grandstands, you're good.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And then,
What Road America this weekend? You got what, nearly 4 miles of perimeter to. Yeah. Social distance is not an issue.
right. So I wonder if this is the time for the racing circles to push their sport harder because you can
Yeah.
easily social distance, right?
Right.
Even
Yeah.
as
You would think
racers.
so. It's funny because I'm going to the Corvette Museum racetrack this weekend, and even now, the only people allowed to be there are staff and riders, and that's it.
The
Can't
Corvette,
even bring us. What's that?
sorry, the Corvette Museum in Kentucky?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep
That's
going.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah, National Corvette Museum. They have a really nice track down there on the other side of the highway from the museum itself. But yeah, the only people that are allowed are riders and staff, and you're not even allowed to bring spouses or anything. And
Wow.
you have to wear a mask outside of your immediate pit area. And we had to do a remote riders meeting, which actually I'm a big fan of. That works out great because Jeff puts it up on YouTube, and you can just watch it at your own leisure.
Right.
And
While
God
you're
knows
pedal
there's
bike.
enough riders meetings.
Right.
But yeah, I think what is interesting too is well, I do a lot of racing with WERA. That's the outfit that I race with. And Road Atlanta, Cycle Jam at Road Atlanta every year is their one of their biggest events. Participation is always really heavy in the South, and that's just a magnet draw for them. And what was interesting is that Michelin owns Road Atlanta now, as I'm sure you know. And so their protocol was the same thing. Everybody outside of their immediate, if they're not in your trailer or under your canopy, you need to have a mask on. Turns out that motorcycle racers don't like to be told what to do, and therefore basically said in mass they weren't going.
Wow.
And which shocked me because I've always thought of, if you're a racer, you race when you have the opportunity to go racing.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm fine. I'll wear the mask. Let me go ride my bike. And but turned out that enough people were aggressive to the idea that he had to he'd pull a plug and let it go. So it didn't end up happening, and it's a shame because it's really not that big of a deal. But that's where the climate is on this stuff, and it's like, racing, it's pretty easy to make this work, guys. It's not that much to ask, but
Yeah. It's funny how you mentioned the national, the Corvette Museum, the National Corvette Museum, because the coronavirus screwed me over, and I'll tell you what happened. In May, no, in April, If you don't know, the National Corvette Museum has they sell tickets for a draw for a Corvette, and they were
Yes.
selling they were raffling a 2020 Corvette, base Corvette. I think it was like 55 grand US.
Hmm.
Um, and they only had 2,000. They only sell 2,000 tickets at $100 a pop, US. Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at the odds, those are pretty damn good odds,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right?
There's no reason to avoid that. That's for sure. Yeah. I
Right.
get why you got in on that.
So I was all in. I told the missus. She said, "Go ahead. It's 200 US. It's like, I don't know, 260, 280 Canadian, whatever. It wasn't too bad." So the only stipulation is because it's from Kentucky, you cannot legally purchase a ticket online. It's
Really?
something the state law. Yeah. Now, there you can still participate, but guess what? You got to mail in your dollars. So then I had to go online, fill out a form, give
Kidding me.
I'm not kidding, man. I had to fill out a form. I had to write down my credit card number. And then after they get the form, they'll call you and say, "Yes, sir, we got your ticket.
Uh,
We'll issue you a ticket. We'll charge you the money on your credit card. You okay with that?" I said, "Yeah." This is late April. Now, I said, with coronavirus, how long is it going to take for my letter to get to Kentucky? I mean, it's a month. It literally a month. I'm like, how long can that be? It can't be more than a month. It's got to be 2 weeks tops.
yeah.
So then I called I asked my post office. I go, how much is it to get like registered, whatever priority delivery? I was like, $30, something insane. I'm like, $30 Canadian? Are you kidding? I'm not paying $30 for a chance. I'll take my chance. So then I get an email in the middle of June, like last week, saying, "Hey, Eric, we got your submission. Did
Uh,
you give the wrong date? Because that draw already happened in May 29th." I went, "Yeah, dude, just give me my money
uh,
back." So he
but
didn't
you got your
mention
money
anything else.
back, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, they don't process the form
that's
until they
good.
give your consent, right?
Great, great. Well, okay, so that's Kentucky, and that's Kentucky. So yeah, being just north of the line, we um we in Ohio like to give Kentucky a hard time, and they generally deserve it. So yeah, that sounds about par for the course for Kentucky. But they got a great racetrack. I'll give them that. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I do plan on making the trip down to. I'm not a big car guy. I've never
Yeah,
other than the 68 Stingray, 68, 69 Stingray. That's the only Corvette I lust after. Even the new one, I like it a lot. I'm a dude, right? Of course it's nice, but I
sure.
don't lust after it. And so, but I still want to make a trip down there just to buy a dang ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I I really liked the new Corvette back when they called it the Ferrari 458, but I mean it's just such a blatant ripoff. But I mean, hey, beauty is beauty. I mean, it does work. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've never really been a hardcore Corvette person. I appreciate them for what they are, but do I want one? Not really. I feel like I need chest hair and a gold chain to pull that off, and I'm short on both. So
Rough. I get
yeah.
it. Now, are you a speed guy, and is that why you got into motorcycling? Now, before you answer, let me give you just a quick thing about me. I'm a speed guy. I like going fast.
Okay.
Allegedly, I've seen 284 kilometers on the clock.
Fair.
I don't remember what that is in miles, but I'll post that in after the podcast. So allegedly, I've seen that. I might have been dreaming, so I don't remember really, but that's what I saw on
Allegedly.
my CBR 929, right? Allegedly, and it's been so many years. I don't think you can get me for it anyway. The point is, I can't turn worth beans. As
Ah,
soon as a mile corner comes, I'm Mr. Chicken Poop, right? I'll just
yeah,
slow it right down.
yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
where did you get your love of bikes and then I guess racing?
Okay, so the funny thing about that is I'm an extremely late arrival to the game. I didn't get my first motorcycle till I was 30.
Oh wow.
So a lot of times when I'm racing people half my age. Now I also I tend to go to races with a couple of guys here in town that are also more advanced in age. And so I'm the youngest of the three. So I'm the kid in that group, but kind of the old man everywhere else.
Right.
But what what was funny about how I got into the thing, to answer your question, am I a speed guy? Not really. Um, what happened is, I think I was 28 or 29, and it was one of those times where your mind's drifting, and I landed on this memory I had from when I was maybe about 14, and I was visiting a relative's house, and there was a moped in there, and it didn't look like anybody had ridden it in ages. And so I was like, can I try that? And my parents weren't exactly they weren't very adventurous. I had a very Baptist upbringing, and so it was very risk averse. Let's just
Fair
say.
enough.
And I was like, I really want to ride that thing. And there was some hemming and some hawing, and they were like, all right, look, just to the end of the block and to the end of the cul-de-sac and back, and that's it. So I rode that moped for 3 hours in an L shape back and forth till it ran out of gas. And since you ride, you know that feeling that first time you were on any kind of motorbike, that unbridled, free
Hmm.
feeling that if you don't ride, you don't quite relate to.
Yeah.
And I knew there was no point in even asking. It wasn't going to happen. So I just kind of let it go then and there. But it just went somewhere in the back of my mind and stayed there, and then resurfaced another 14, 15 years later.
Wow.
And then I was like, well, there's nothing stopping me now. And so I bought a CB750, a 99 CB750, a couple hours away on eBay. I brought it home. I then went and did my motorcycle safety foundation class
Yep.
and got my certification for my license,
Yep.
and then proceeded to drop the thing all over town because it was nearly 600 pounds, and I have a 30-inch inseam, so it was just every time I came to a stop, it was clunk, and it was just hilarious. And then I did what everybody does, and I started getting this thing where I really liked going through the twisties. And some guys like you, they just like raw acceleration, but I was really getting into cornering, or I was trying to, on a bike not made for it. And eventually I overcook one, go headfirst into a guardrail, and
Ooh.
that bike's shot. And so I go get another one, and then I go to a Honda CB 599 or CB 600, the 599, also called the Hornet in Europe,
Okay.
and had a little better luck with that one. And then after a while, I was like, man, if there was some place to ride these things where you could really go all out. And then somebody turned me on to track days. And like, well, you can go to the racetrack. I was like, where? I mean, that's the first question. Like
Right.
if you're a street rider, there's just no roadmap for how to get there. Where do you go if you want to go to the next level? So you really have to dig. And eventually, I land at the racetrack. I do a track day, and I realized then at that point, like, oh, I don't even know what I don't know at this point.
Mm.
But the seed was planted, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And the uh, the rest took some time because I had seen I'd kind of gotten in with some people, and they were really big into track days and racing, and some guys were doing AMA Pro at the time, and a lot of them were flaming out in like 2 years and going broke or flaming out. And I was like, okay, here's the thing. If I'm going to do this, I want to be able to do it in a way that is sustainable, where I'm the one who decides when I'm done, not my
Mm.
bank account.
Mm.
So I just took little slices at a time, started by buying a suit, waited another year, bought more gear, then eventually bought a track bike, a real cheap one, and then broke that in half, bought another cheap track bike, and just kept working my way up. Then got a trailer. Then you just got to start chipping away at it, pay cash, don't take out loans, and then you end up one day you're like, I'm gonna get my race license. Let's do this thing,
Huh.
and and then you're sucked in, and then you're broke
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Yeah. See, I have a, so I want to actually tell a quick story about, I'm totally opposite of you, by the way. in terms of the bike journey.
Probably for the better.
Maybe, but I want to talk about the crash.
Yeah.
Did you come out unscathed, or did you have some injuries?
I mean, that's
The
one.
750.
Yeah, the 750. No. I have you ever crashed significantly on yours?
I've never sustained yes to the bike, no to the
No
person.
to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you've ever crashed into something, there's only one thing stopping your body from continuing to go forward, and that's between your legs. So if you do the math, it's really painful. Because the only thing stopping you is ramming you right in the crotch. So that was that was the thing that stood out the most when I was laying in the middle of the street, was that I thought I was never going to be able to take a healthy piss again. And then, um, basically it was road rash. I mean, I was wearing a helmet and a jacket, so I wasn't. I was just bruised up, and I had some road rash where my jacket had slid up. But I mean, I broke the wheel in half, the front wheel in half, and the forks were bent, and I mean, it was pretty bad. But I mean, gracious, that's one of how many times have I crashed? It's got to be pushing 15.
On the
Maybe,
track and on the streets?
yeah, between the
Okay.
two, maybe close to 20.
Okay.
It becomes on the track, it becomes pretty routine. But you watch racing, you know that.
Yeah, for sure. No. So my journey is complete opposite of yours. I mean, I got my bike license pretty young, and then
Yeah.
I kind of let it go. I just didn't have the money to buy a bike. So by the time I hit 19, I said I can't afford a bike, and I just let it go. And then in Canada, we started doing tiered licensing.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, like, I'm not going to go through like an M1, M2. I'm like, I'm just not interested. But then, once I realized I could buy my own bike, just like you, a little younger. But once I was like you, I go, I can buy my own bike. What's stopping me? Nothing. Okay. So I bought a bike. Long story short, I did some track days. And after the first significant crash on my track day on my CBR 929 and put in $4,000 to fix it, I said, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pose on the street. I'll wear my full leathers and just pose on the street, pretend I can ride. And that was kind of it. But I did a bunch of track days. I liked it, but I knew it wasn't a sport that I want to invest money in.
Right. Right.
That's what it was for me. Yeah.
Well, that's smart, because the thing is, if your heart isn't in it that way, you will spend a lot of money because you have to, and then you're left wondering, what am I doing with my cash? And that's, every time I go down, that's probably one of the tougher things about racing and track days for me is I can deal with just about everything else fairly easily. It's crashing emotionally hits me hard.
Mm,
And 'cause all I see is the work I put in on the things that don't matter and don't make the bike go fast that I told you about. All I see is all that time and energy going up in smoke, and it just crushes me every time. And
yeah.
like last year at the Grand National Finals at Barber with WERA, this is a perfect example. We we had a remnant of a hurricane come through, and it was just 2 days of just monsoon conditions, and they raced in it because
Right.
I'm not a maniac. But Sunday ended up being nice. And so I do morning practice, and the first lap of my first race, someone comes in, overcooks museum, goes off track, and knocks me clean off my bike coming back on track.
Ouch.
And there's nothing you can do. That's racing. That's what
Yeah.
happens. But then I come back and I'm like, what? I drove 8.5 hours each way. I paid my fees. I sat around and waited in a parking lot just to get the chance to do this, and I get one lap in, and I'm down, and I'm not going to be able to come back. And then you have to sit on that for an entire winter, and it really it can, if you don't watch yourself, it can really eat away at you. And so for me, that's my struggle nowadays. It's hard to bounce back from these things that you can't control, because that's the thing. I got to control my circumstances. And
Right.
so this is why racing is a bit of a love-hate thing with me sometimes. It's there's just too much chaos to be sure that you can ever complete a race clean. And so
Yeah.
all you do is really hope.
Yeah. I've always thought the guys who, and this happens every year, right? You get guys who do track days and they're pretty noob at it and they ride to the track. And I'm
Yeah,
like, why? You've ridden for
right,
2.5 hours. You're already a little bit saddle sore, maybe. You're a little bit tired. You might not feel it, but you are. Okay,
right.
because once you do a track day, the first time you're like, wow, 15 minutes, like it's like playing hockey, right? 2 minutes on the ice is like, I cannot believe how tiring that is. And same
Exactly.
thing with track day. So I found it nuts that I see guys who routinely, drive or ride to the thing. And I've seen guys crash and then beg for a ride back, right? Which is hard.
Well, sure, that's the big thing. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that, but I have heard of it happening.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I can't even wrap my brain around that. I mean, yeah, not at this point. That's craziness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I part of my relationship with the sport is that even though it drives me nuts because I'm a control freak, the the thing about it is that since my mind is always so spastic and fast, that when the flag drops, it's the only time it goes quiet,
Hmm.
and you just go, and it's no more thinking. It's you just have to do, and I love it. I absolutely love it. A lot of people get butterflies, and I go quiet, and everything just feels like I just run the revs up to 10,007, drop the clutch and go. And then you play the hand you're dealt at that point. Look for your openings and go. But
Yeah,
I
I find
love it.
that yeah, I find that super interesting. I have friends who are teachers, kindergarten, grade one, grade two teachers, and I said, kids being kids, how do you calm them down? And she said, you know what, we give them exercises to do, right? When you feel upset, when you're in the red zone and you want to get back into the green zone, you can try
Right.
doing things like this. Put up your hand and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You count. I said, that's cool. I should try that. And I did. And I've done that a bunch. And every time I just want to punch my head through a wall anyway,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Right.
but for you, and I originally wanted to ask you that, it's like, what do you do to calm yourself before a race? Are there techniques, or are there things that you do, mental exercises, multiplication table in your head? Is there anything that you do? But it sounds like you don't need that because your calm space is the track, is the race itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely a mess until it's the two board, and then I'm okay. It's really weird because then there's no going back. You're like
All right.
you're on your grid spot. Like this is happening with or without you. So, um, but yeah, really, I'm probably what's bad is waiting for the calls for the race because your warmers are on, you're geared up, and you're just waiting there, like rocking back and forth, like I'm ready to go. Let's just get this thing going, man. And you just have to wait. And and then what's even worse is when a red flag happens in the race before you, and now you're
Mm-mm.
just waiting, and you have no idea how long it's going to take. And some guys puke. That's their coping mechanisms.
Huh.
Some guys number two is the coping mechanism. Some guys that just don't. It doesn't phase them at all. You know, and
Yeah.
those are the guys who have the best advantage. I've always found the guys who just don't care. They have a distinct advantage. But I gotta use my eyes and my hands. So I can't do this kind of thing with total reckless abandon. Like my biggest obstacle is the calculation. It's like I'm always trying to play chess out there, and I'm
Mm.
not taking a lot of gambles. Like I'm not going to pass you unless I know I got it. And I'm not going to try to pull some kind of cowboy maneuver and stuff you because we're all going to work on Monday. Like let's be
Right.
real here. And
Right.
I'm not interested in landing myself or somebody else in a hospital over a $5 plaque. It's just not worth it. So it's as long as you can trust that the people around you have the same attitude, it's great. It's just when the people sometimes get in the mix who are willing to send it and don't care what happens. That's when it gets frustrating because it costs you money.
Right. Now, as a privateer, how much do you depend on your friends, the crew? Do you have a lot of support, or is it pretty much a one-man show?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. There there's always a support structure at the track, especially with club racers, because we all know we're all in the same struggle.
Mm.
Everybody's trying to, not ruin their checking account and trying to stay healthy and trying to get to the next race. So I alluded to it before. There's a little cluster of us here in town, and we we're all in our 40s or 50s, and we have regular day jobs, and it's we're all kind of in that same mode. So we go to races to kind of decompress or get away, and
Mm.
it's how we spend our vacation time. And it's a lot of work, but we help each other. And so it's a little bit of a retreat, if you will. And we chip in on food, or sometimes we'll ride together, or at the very least we set up together in the paddock. And if somebody crashes or whatever, we're always working on somebody else's bike, or trying to make sure that they're okay. And for if in the case of like our friend Todd went down pretty hard at Mid Ohio in 2018, and he was in the hospital, broken ribs, and I broke a few bones. And so somebody's got to handle the stuff, and
Mm.
it's not like a professional operation where you got a team and you got a crew that's handling that for you. So your friends, you just got to step in, and like I don't know how he packs his trailer, but we'll figure it out. And that's what you got to do. So yeah, so your friends always help. And the longer you race, the more you get connected with people, and they you start to see familiar faces every time you show up at the racetrack, even though you're 500 miles from here to the next place or to the next place. It's like, oh yeah, I remember you. Oh yeah, 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 I've seen you before. And then eventually, it's just like everybody knows everybody, and it's
Right.
cool.
Yeah, no,
But
that is kind of cool.
yeah, and there's financially, you're definitely on your own, and that's where anytime you can get help is is critical. Um, in my case, MSA Design has sponsored me, and um, so in exchange, I splashed the logo all over my bike, and it's kind of a win-win. They get
Yep.
to be involved with something that's kind of outside of their wheelhouse, and I get to expose their brand to a completely different group of people. And I work with Alpha One Vinyl Works. They help me with all the vinyl stuff. Velocity Calibrations works on my suspension, and also affiliated with Vortex and Motul. And so that helps with lubricants and controls and things like that. So that everything makes a difference. So it's critical.
Yeah, no, I've talked to other team owners, racers, and up and comers, so to speak. And honestly, sponsorship and is a full-time job. It's actually two full-time jobs if you add all the amount of work. Is that something that you chase? Is that something that lands on in your lap serendipitously? How does that work?
Uh, yeah, I don't know that I definitely don't chase it.
Hmm.
Um, at at the club level, it it isn't necessary.
Sure.
Let me put it that way. Professionally, yeah, I could definitely see what you're saying. That is a full-time job. But for us, it all depends on really on how much money you make. Um, and if you can, well, it depends on how much money you make and how often you race. And if you want to race a lot, then you're probably going to have to reach out and get some help. But you'll notice that in the club series, usually the guys who are doing a lot of racing have either family members with a lucrative business, or a, a close family friend with a lucrative business. And then that's the logos you see on the bike. And that's why they're at every event every week. And guys like me and my friends, we make it out when we can. And
Hmm.
sometimes if it ain't in the cards, the checking account says no, the checking account says no. And that's all you can do.
Yeah. I see behind you, you've got two guitars. I assume you play.
Um, I try. I've been
Yeah.
playing for, let's see, 23, 24 years now. Um, yeah, I'm your prototypical guitar hack. Yeah, I mean, I can play most of the stuff you've heard on the radio, probably, but
Okay.
probably not well. Yeah, I don't brag about it, but yeah, I got fascinated with it when I was a kid. When I was 17 or 18. So it's actually my brother is a far more accomplished musician than I am, and he's he's a recording engineer down in the Nashville area now.
Okay. Wow.
But
Cool.
he's just got the natural gift for it. I've always had to grind it out, and I'm still not very good. So
Yeah, it's very embarrassing because I'm just thinking about myself. I at
yeah,
one time way less like way less than you. I've only I think played with the guitar for maybe oh 4 or 5 years. I mean, I never took a lesson. I self-taught. Everything I've ever done in my life was because I thought the girls would like it. Like riding, it's because I thought, hey, I can't pick up a girl to save my life. No one's looking at me. But hey, as soon as I brought out the bike with the helmet, they're like, hey, how's it going? And then as soon as you take up the helmet, they're like, oh, sorry, I was talking to the guy behind you. Sorry. You know,
right,
that
right.
kind of stuff, right? So I
But
realized,
did
like,
that
dude,
does that work for you? Because it never worked for me.
uh, no, I'm terrible with women. I am
Yeah.
just absolutely, I've got no, I'm chicken. I don't like talking to them. I jump, I invariably hop into the friend zone more often than not. And that's sometimes not even by design. Well, again, I've been fortunate enough that I've had girls who actually like me, but they never told me. And it was after years of,
Fine.
us as friends. And then she goes, well, I liked you. And I'm like, how? She goes, well, I called you every like other day. And I went, well, I will talk to a lot of my friends too. Like I had just no clue. Or I've had ex-girlfriends who'll hang out with me and then she'll go, you know that girl that works with you? And I go, yeah, she likes you, eh? I'm like, what do you mean? Well, that girl at church? Yeah, she likes you too. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then turns out that she did.
Yeah.
But I literally would have no clue. So I've always been bad with women.
See, I think so. Check this out, because I think this is the difference in age when you started writing versus when I started writing. Because for me, the bike and the helmet, anytime I was out somewhere, women in their 30s look at that and go, "Oh, he's irresponsible. Like, oh, he's no good. Like he just can't grow up." Like that's the vibe I always got. So it was like it was almost female repellent for me. Whereas if I had probably started writing in college, probably would
Right.
have worked like gangbusters. But I
Yeah,
think that's where I went wrong.
yeah, and I'll tell you one more story about the lack of the ability to pull girls. I went and I even got a rescue dog, and I'm telling you, dude, it's the cutest looking thing. It was an American Eskimo. It's like yay big,
Oh,
all white, fluffy, really cute, aggressive as heck. Then I find out it was crazy, but it was cute, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be one of those guys, gonna work out, wear my little tank top. I'm gonna take my dog, I'm gonna go running in the park, and I'm gonna have women just flock. And all I got was old, desperate men with other dogs, and I'm like, this doesn't work.
oh,
Does anyone want my
nice.
dog? Yeah, ladder.
Yeah, that's a big commitment for a backfire. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, sad to say I didn't. It was a great dog. It just wasn't for me because I
Yeah.
wasn't responsible enough to have a dog full time. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Plus, it was genuinely aggressive. It tried biting my girlfriend at the time, so
Ooh.
we
Yeah,
had to give
that's
it back. Yeah, we had to give it away.
I love the idea on paper. I've flirted with it many times because I mean I grew up with dogs and I love dogs. I just don't feel like I don't think I have quite the right lifestyle. And
Mm.
if I'm gonna do it, I want to do it right. So I've kind of let it go. But maybe in another 10 years or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Now, do you still ride on the street, or is that pretty much done?
Good question. Yeah, I race a 2010 R6 and I street ride a 2005, which in my opinion, is the best all-around sport bike ever made. If I had to put my vote for any one maker model, that would be it. Um, I don't do it nearly as much as I used to. Once I started racing, it just I get on the on ramp and I look down and I'm doing 110 and I don't even realize what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's just 4, 5, 6. Oh wait, and it's at this point it's kind of all risk and no reward. and plus I only live what 7 miles from my office, so it if I was commuting maybe 40 miles each way and I was really saving on gas, I could justify it that way. But nowadays, I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I got on my street bike and just went for a ride.
Right.
So, but I love the bike and I probably won't ever get rid of it. But it does collect a lot of dust.
Yeah, I don't ride because I live, well, it's not the distance, it's that, and I've tried riding to work, but every 2 days I gotta go fill up.
Yeah,
And after the first week, I'm like, oh, I gotta fill up again.
right, right.
Because I drive an electric car, so I don't fill up. I just park it at home and I charge it up and I go to work the next day, and it's enough for me to get there and back, no problem. But yeah, it just feels like, and plus it's all highway. There's literally
Yeah,
no turns.
yeah,
Okay, I can make the right turn. I can maybe get close to kneeing down on the right on the on ramp, but I can't do lefts. So I'm like, what's the point? And I can't listen to a podcast. Right, that's
yeah,
the third
yeah.
problem. You can listen to some like EDM, dance music, but there's no lyrics, right? Might
Yeah.
as well listen to classical music and deal with that instead. And anyways, yeah, so it's not that fun for me.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, I'm in the same boat because I'm talking about, I-71 for 6 miles to downtown to my parking space, and that's the. I'm like, yeah, this really isn't that great. But
Mm.
every once in a while, I mean, if it's 60 to 65 degrees, sunny, sometimes it's like, well, these are the conditions. If you have a motorcycle, you really should ride it. So.
Yeah,
I get my act together and I do it. But yeah,
yeah.
everybody's texting. It's crazy out there, and I'm like, I one of these days. I mean, I crashed on the street last year, just turning left from a stop sign, and hit something, and boom, bike's down. It's just like that, and my knees not hasn't been right since,
Oh wow,
and it's a 10-mile-an-hour crash, you know,
that's crazy.
and it's just those kind of things, and you're like, oh, I got to live with this, and it's just so dumb, you know. That's what you sign up for, and this is the contract we signed when we got these silly things.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I read a lesson on this, but I'm like you. I will probably never sell my bike because as soon as I sell it, I'll be itching. Now, have you seen the prices of new bikes today? How ridiculously expensive they've become, at least in Canada.
Yeah, yeah, I have, and that's why I never buy a new bike. And I'll see you on the other side of the depreciation curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll let somebody else take that hit.
Yeah, I'll tell you that in MSRP Canadian dollars, okay, so it's obviously a lot less than US money, but a new CBR 1000 was 23 grand. 23 grand, you can almost buy like a base, not a base Civic, but like a base, I don't know, Nissan Sentra, something, and you can buy
Hyundai
a car
Elantra.
for
Yeah,
23, yeah. You can yeah, that's right, for 23 G's, and that's pretty steep. And I'm like, that's not even the special. That's not even the SP version. That's the
right.
straight up CBR 1000. It's crazy.
What is the conversion rate looking like these days?
I don't know. It's probably like 19, 20 G's
Hmm.
US, maybe. It's not great. It's not
Wow,
cheap.
I didn't realize that the U.S. dollar had outpaced the Canadian dollar. I thought we were almost even up for a while.
I know you guys are much. I think it's 70 cents American to one Canadian dollar.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, yeah.
That's not fair. We're just sitting around printing up money. We're
Well,
just
that's it.
inventing fake money all over the place.
Dude, we're not doing any better. Like we just like your economy, ours is tanked and we're handing it out like it's free, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna be, I don't know, man, 2, 3 generations before our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids will pay it off, right? If ever.
If ever.
If
Yeah,
ever.
that's the million dollar question. Yeah. I have a feeling we're not fully understanding the ramifications of the decisions that are getting made right now. It's a little scary.
Yeah. Now, how has that impacted your industry? And I'll tell you that in my day job, and I won't mention my company name. That's the other thing I don't talk about, by the way. I don't talk about my company name, about the company I work for. But long
Sure.
story short is we're actually doing decent because the stuff we make can be thought of as an essential piece of software. What is that like in your industry in the architecture business?
Y- yeah, we're demolished. Um, I think so. I did something I don't like to do. I like to leave it to the people who handle money. But I looked up there's this thing called the Architectural Billings Index, and what that basically measures is how many dollars are coming in relative to the dollars that have been coming in. Like, are you getting more billings or less? So it measures positive or negative relative to a baseline, not to zero. And the graph, which normally looks like a stock market graph, kind of does this, and it gets to April, and it just goes like this off the sheet,
Wow.
and it's just you're like, oh wow. Now for us, we are doing probably better than most because we aren't tied to a lot of those volatile industries. Um, but we're hurting like everybody. I mean, there aren't people aren't banging down our door for work. Everybody's in a holding pattern.
Mm,
So we have a couple of new things coming in. That's encouraging. And anything new at this point is huge. Um, and and our leadership has done. I mean, credit where credit is due. They've done a fantastic job of trying to protect everybody and making sure that they're not, doing mass layoffs. And we haven't done any. And we have our entire staff still on board, still getting paid. And Mike is very adamant about taking care of all of us. It's a real family atmosphere. And he's like, I'm going to keep rowing until we have to cut loose. So we're still hanging in there, but yeah, the industry as a whole is got to be in panic mode at this point. So I don't know how this is going to play out. It's going to be very interesting to see.
yeah, because this is one of those industries that I've never thought about that could be hurting. I mean, obviously the restaurants are shut down. Those are obvious.
Yeah,
Retail stores, those
yeah,
are obvious, right? But yeah, when you think about it, I mean, if nobody has a retail store, what's the point in trying to open a new store or a new
right,
mall, right? If nobody's going to baseball games, what's the point in revamping the park?
right, right. And the thing that throws people off is they see a lot of cranes up and a lot of construction crews working. What you got to realize, though, is that those decisions were made a year ago.
Hmm.
Those contracts were signed, those drawings were done a long time ago. Those guys are just working out what was already decided upon. So the decision-making process that keeps that work happening is now frozen. So all of those guys in another 6 or 8 months, once those projects are wrapped up and complete, are they're going to be sitting around twiddling their thumbs too. And so I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Now, is there any silver linings? I mean, I can imagine now renovation, even resto mods. I know it's a car thing, but imagine resto mods for building. That might be a new trend, right? Why demolish building when we can just fix up the inside?
Yeah.
Is that something that's,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's a viable route. You're going to see more and more of that anyway because there's only so much land. Eventually, you got to reuse what's out there, and so that's a big one. And you're going to see more robotics and prefabrication. That's going to
Mm,
be a thing. I don't think we're going to be too far away from, a large scale 5-axis 3D printing of structures. Um, I don't think we're going to be far away from that. I mean, maybe
mm,
give it another 15 to 20 years, but they're already playing with it now. So it's coming.
yeah.
And that's got really interesting implications too, especially for the housing market, since architects decided to give up on the housing market a long, long time ago,
Yeah.
generations ago.
Right. No, that is something that I'm actually looking forward to is the 3D printed houses en
Yeah.
masse, right? I think I saw, I'm sure there's tons of these videos out there, but I saw a video where it was like like 300 square foot home made of concrete and insulated, 3D printed for like 5 Gs
Yeah,
US. Something crazy. It was like very, and I'm like, holy cow! Even for 20 grand, I would totally
sure.
put one in my backyard, right? I
Yeah,
toyed with the idea, I'm Asian, so by culture, I have no choice. Once my parents get too old, they're gonna have to live with me, and that's it. Whether anybody likes it or not, even if they don't want to, by the way, they're like, we never want to live with you, and we hated you growing up. Why would we want to live with you now? I go, yeah, but you don't have a choice. You're Chinese. Anyways,
exactly.
my
Got
point
to play
was,
by the rules.
yeah, exactly, right? And I said, Dad, I'll throw you in a tiny house trailer. I'll throw one each, right? I know you and Mom don't want to sleep together now. That's fine because you're getting older. We'll just get two trailers. You come in for dinner, and when you're done, out you go and you watch TV or surf the web, do what
Yeah,
you want.
exactly. But you got to remember, you got to run plumbing out there too. That's expensive, unless they're coming in the house to use the toilet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the tiny house, we'll get put in a like a little portable,
There you go.
septic tank kind of thingy, and we'll just empty it out once a month. Let's get a
Yeah,
pump.
yeah. I mean, there is that. I mean, it kind of sucks, but you can do it. You can do
But
it.
they, in the winter, they can come out. They can use their own bathroom, right? Because they don't want
Yeah,
to make the trek out.
right.
In the summer, if you're not tired, you're not hot, just come in. Like, we'll let you use the washroom. I'm not a
Yeah.
savage. I'm a nice guy. They are my
Yeah,
parents.
it's allowable. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. There's like a chit system. You got to buy tickets, right?
There you go.
I'm Chinese. I gotta make money, bro.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, you raffle them off every once in a while. It's like 50 cents per ticket. We'll see if we draw your number. Maybe it's a
For
good
a
day,
dollar.
maybe it's not, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah,
So, talking to you pre-COVID, you probably didn't have a lot of free time, right?
correct.
What do you do for fun in your spare time? And please do not tell me that prepping the bike is your time off, because that doesn't count. Unless it really is.
Yeah. That's really all I've done in the past 3 to 4 weeks is prep the bike. My Instagram vouches for me. Come on. Um, so what else do I do? I mean, I do noodle on the guitar. I mean, I work a lot, and so between that, the problem is I have a really time-intensive job and a really time-intensive hobby, and then so it's that, and then I try to keep this place from falling over. So between, and I'm single, I live alone, so I gotta do the laundry and take out the trash and cut the grass and all that stuff. So it's simple but you don't really think about it. It all adds up. So when I'm done and doing all that other stuff, I'm usually just like, okay, what's on Netflix? Like
Mm,
just give me an hour just to check out for a little while, or I listen to podcasts, kind of like you do.
yeah.
I'm listening to Joe Rogan, and then everything else that comes along with that algorithm. Watching racing,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think I mean, that's pretty. I used to play golf, and once I used to be pretty good, actually, in all
Wow.
honesty. But
Yeah.
um, once the motorcycles came into the game,
Yeah.
when you have two hobbies that are kind of dependent on good weather, one of them's just going to eat the other one, and the motorcycles won. And so I'm gracious, I haven't played golf now in forever, but that used to be a bit of a thing for me. But yeah, really, honestly, there isn't enough bike prep for my OCD tendencies to be satisfied. So I will get to a stopping point, but there's always more. Like I've
Right.
got a second set of body work out there that I've just got done sanding down that I repaired from Barber last year that still needs shot and cleared. And
Mm,
I'm like, all right, I'm ready for this weekend, but I still got that to do. And I really hope I don't crash so I don't have anything more to fix. And then I got more stuff to buy. You're always trying to collect spare parts. So I'm always either shopping for parts, buying
right.
parts, or
Right.
fixing what I got. And it just never ends. Or I'm buying trailer restraints or stuff from Pitbull and it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm just a tremendously mediocre club racer. Like I can't even imagine what the guys who are operating at the pointy end of the spear are doing.
Right.
So
But you like it.
yeah, I mean, and I don't know how long I can keep this up. Um, I I'm competitive, and I like to get in there and mix it up,
Mm-hmm.
but I also realize that I'm getting older and now it's starting to get harder.
Mm.
It's just you're hurting for longer, and it's harder to stay in shape and stay in good riding shape, racing shape. So there's going to come a point where, maybe 10 years, I'm going to start winding down and be like, yeah, maybe I need to start looking at this more at a very recreational level. But
Right.
for now, I'm going to keep trying to do what I do and get better. That's really all I can do, you know, keep hacking away.
Now, before the podcast, we had talked about the questions I would ask you, right? And you kind of alluded to the point where like, ugh, I don't want to talk about, I don't want to be part of the cancel culture. I don't want to say anything inflammatory, okay? So sit back, relax. I'm going to ask you one question I'm sure is going to make you squirm.
All right.
And the question is this. I'm not going to guess your age. I just assume you're younger than me. I'm actually a lot older than I look. Uh, Being Asian and just being born with lucky genes, I'm actually probably older than you. Now, here's the question. Are you single by choice or just
Oh,
haven't had any luck?
I was bracing for something way worse than that. We can
No,
play
as good as
age.
that. No, no,
How,
no.
how
We
old
don't
do you
have to.
think I am?
I don't know. You're probably late 30s, early
That's
40s.
43.
Close enough. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So cool. Is it by
So,
choice? Do you want to get hooked up?
um, I don't think I want to get hooked up. But I'm not, it's one of those deals where I've never been opposed to it.
Sure.
But every time I end up there,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I don't think this is right for me. And then it breaks off, and then I reset. I'm like, okay, maybe you're just being stupid. Let's try this again. Let's
Mm.
start over and clear your mind. Try to do this right. Do it again. I end up in the same spot. I'm like, I don't think this is right for me. And so then falls apart. Lather, rinse, and repeat.
Mm.
And so I've quit trying to figure it out. And I'm like, you'll know when you know, and just leave it alone. Do your
Mm.
thing, and when everything aligns, it'll work out. So that's
Mm.
kind of my take on it.
Yeah. See, I cannot imagine trying to date today in this climate, in this day and age. Forget the coronavirus and everything else, but
Right.
just, just, and it's not even like, oh, at I'm my age, what options do I have left, right? It's not even, again, it's not even that. If I was in my 20s now, I would hate to be in my 20s in the dating pool because it's with Instagram and all and every other social media out there. First of all, your your um your expectations are a lot higher.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know about your feed, but I mean, I must have clicked on one attractive person on my feed and then I got 10,000 more the next day, right? And I'm like, that is an unrealistic ideal to chase after, you
Yeah.
know. Sure, there's
Yeah.
beautiful guys and girls all over the place, but to find that one that looks like this person or that person, it's not gonna happen. Especially me, the way I look and everything else. So I don't know, man. Is dating tougher? Is it easier because of social
Um,
media? What do you think?
it's I think it's like everything else. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, I gave in to the digital thing a few years back. Everybody was doing it, and it's like, well, what am I gonna do? Go to bars? Like go to bars trolling for women at 40 years old? Like, come on. Like, I'm not gonna do that. I don't have that kind of time,
Yeah.
and don't have the desire. So the nice thing about it is that you can at least have some exchanges with someone before you commit to meeting them, rather than just winging it and hoping you don't crash and burn on the spot. So at least you can kind of establish whether or not you have any desire to actually try to see this person later on. And I kind of dig that part of it, and it helps you. I think when you communicate through the phone, although there's so much room for misinterpretation, I think when you first talk to somebody you don't know, you tend to be kind of precise to
Yeah.
avoid that. And then it allows you to control how you present yourself. And I've always found that to be somewhat comforting. I know a lot of people that don't like it, and I could totally understand why people don't like it. But for me, I'm okay with it. It's still a complete mess, and it's it's awful. I think everybody thinks it's awful, but it's one of those things. It's like rush hour traffic. What are you gonna do? You know, it's just gonna be there, and you can either live with it or you cannot drive. So you go, oh, if I'm gonna be dating, I guess this is what I need to do. And you make of it what you can, and there are parts of it that suck, but you know, it has its redeeming qualities.
Yeah. Well, we'll end off with a final question about your racing.
Yeah,
What do you want to do? What is next dream of racing? Are you chasing a championship? What do
that's
you
a
want to
great
do?
question. Yeah, so the funny thing about when I stumbled into racing, I started on in a class called lightweight twins, and that's almost a spec class for the SV 650. Now the FZ7, MT7 are making their way in, and the Ducati's also starting to squeak in too. If you watch Moto America, you've seen all the Pro Twins class, and I've raced against some of those guys. But I this is going to be a long answer to your question. So that's how I started, and then I started in late 2016. I went to Mid Ohio because that's my home track, and did pretty well. And I was like, oh hey, okay, this is cool. And then I had a series of calamities that I'm not going to bore you with, but just one demoralizing crash or personal disaster after another. And I went from feeling really great, just getting my license and getting a couple wins and a second and a third. And I was like, okay, like I can do this. I can hang with these guys. And then, I mean, 3 months later, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. And so I sat it out the winter. And then in 2017, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go down to Talladega on a whim and just see what happens. So I did the nationals down there and got some podiums. And I was like, okay, that was kind of fun. Did Road Atlanta next and got 2 wins and another podium. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I went to Pittsburgh, got a couple more podiums, and I was leading the championship. And I was like, well, now I got to see this through. And so I went to Mid Ohio and got some more podiums, and then mathematically sealed up the points and went down to Barber and finished the year out. And I, stumbled my way into 2 number 1 plates for Formula 2 and lightweight twins. And I was like, wow, that was cool. And I had a blast doing it because it was fun to know every event. Like, okay, if I just get fourth or better, or if I just get third or better, like I can maintain a lead here. And unlike you, like I really like stats. I like telemetry. I like numbers, and it's a lot of fun to play that game. And so when I could actually play the long game, a season out, and make it work,
Hmm.
it was really gratifying. And still probably going to be I'll probably take that as a top 5 accomplishment to my grave because I never saw it coming, and I frankly didn't think I was good enough. And it just shows you what can happen if you just get out there. Just get out
Right.
there and give it a shot. And if
Yeah.
you stick with it long enough, you never know how it's going to play out. So the flip side to all of that was I loved lightweight racing, hated the bikes. I I cannot explain the hatred I have for the SV650. Now, before that ends up anywhere, it's not the bike's fault. It's my fault. It's me. It's not the bike, but I hate them.
Right.
So ultimately, I got my expert license and I was starting to race expert and lightweight and having all kinds of issues trying to make that bike go faster. And I'm like, now I can keep doing this and hate this experience, or I can go back to inline fours that I like so much and start racing those. And so I just said, you know what, I'm pulling the plug on this. And I shifted to the 600s. And that is a much deeper talent pool. So I have found myself clawing back up from the bottom now, trying to be relevant in that class. So it's it's been a lot longer coming than I expected, and I still got some work to do. But I would say, yeah, a championship run may happen in the next couple of years. I think this year is a throwaway for everyone.
Sure.
Like anybody's trying to do anything this year. Track time is just, I mean, that's a victory in and of itself. Next year, maybe, or maybe 2022. Um, I've I've still got I've got a lot of time I need to shave off of that machine before I'm going to start running with the fast. There's always fast guys every single event. There are dudes that are nipping at the top 5 experts in the novice classes, and it's the hill is steep. So I'm working on it. I've got a lot of top 5s. It's just getting into the top 3 is proving to be difficult. So I keep swinging the hammer.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
All right, cool, Jeremy. Dude, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really had a good time.
Yeah, me too, Eric. Thanks a lot for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Are you going to be doing any races at all? Has officially everything's been shut down, or is there still going to be races?
No, they're racing now.
Right.
I think there was a race actually up by Cleveland, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. Thought seriously about getting in on that. Probably should have. Roebling Road down in Savannah, Georgia, they're having a race for the Southeast region, I think, in the next week or two.
Okay.
Mid Ohio has been postponed, and that's a TBD situation. That's got a festival attached to it, and that's got 100,000 people, so that's a whole different ball of wax. But that may be happening later. Yeah, I haven't checked the schedule beyond in the next 3 or 4 weeks, but yeah, races are happening.
Okay.
They're also racing out west too. WERA West is doing their thing as well. So
Yeah,
it's
cool.
it's slow, but it's happening.
Yeah. I'd love to have you back on probably later on in the year if you get some racing under your legs.
Sure.
Would love to have you back on.
Sounds great.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You got
Bye
it.
now.
Bye.